to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. First item is a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Smarter, by Commissioner Sauger. All those in favor, please vote on this iPad. Thank you very much. Need a motion to approve the minutes? Motion to approve the minutes? Moved by Commissioner Carabelli, supported by Commissioner Romano. Please vote. Thank you. Item number 5 is public participation. Anyone from the public wish to be heard? Anyone from the public? Anyone from the public? Seeing no one, we'll close public participation. Item number 6 is Department recommendations, a contract from MDOT.
Here. Hi, Vince Viviano on behalf of the Macomb County Department of Roads. As far as the contract for MDOT, the pavement of 23 mile from North Avenue to Fairchild, which actually in the start of the fall of 18 here, we'll start the preliminary work, and in the spring of 19 be finished. And actually it's 1 mile increments. So from the next increment, we'll go from Fairchild to Card to Heinrich, and Heinrich to Romeo Plank, and hopefully be able to do it in 3 years.
Thank you. Need a motion to approve? Yep. Motion by Commissioner Carabelli. Support. Any discussion on this item? Need a motion to please vote? Thank you very much. Next one is proposal for Greenway Collaborative, Bergman Associates.
These were some grant funds that the Macomb County Department of Road had come in place with by way of planning, which JP understands a little bit, but Warren and Sterling Heights received $42,000 with the Macomb County Department of Roads participating at $76.25 of that. And Centerline received $30,000 with the Department of Roads participating $5,445. And this was the RFP, which I believe you folks have seen. And Greenway was the company that got it to do the engineering design.
Okay. Need a motion? Motion by Commissioner Carabelli, supported by Commissioner Gillette. Any discussion on this item? Please vote. Okay, motion passes. Item 6C, a budget amendment. IT UPS battery replacement at Comet. Is there anything else? I think that's all for you,
Yeah.
Mr. Vivian.
Nice seeing you, Mr. Viviano.
Yep,
Thank
I
you
was
very
going to say,
much.
if it goes up, thank you.
Nice to see you. Made it easy on you today.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
Sandy Wilson, I'm the Deputy Director of IT.
Good
Hello,
afternoon.
Sandy. Welcome.
Sandy Wilson, the Deputy Director of IT. Jaco is unavailable today.
Okay.
So I'm going through items C and D, which is the first, the budget amendment for the UPS battery replacement at Comtech. So this particular item was brought to the board back in August, and it was requested that we come back with a bid. And so the $72,000 is a result of the bid from 4 different vendors.
Okay.
And this particular UPS, just as a reminder, was for the power supplies, the uninterruptible power supplies over at the Comtech building to keep dispatch and Comtech operational in case of a power outage.
Okay.
So what we're requesting now is a $72,000 amendment to be approved.
Need a motion to approve this. Motion by Commissioner Majak, supported by Commissioner Romano. Any questions on that? Commissioner Carabelli?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Are you prepared to, are you familiar with this project?
Partially, yes.
Okay. I understand the battery backup. I understand the need. Okay. And this is just the Comtech that we're talking about. I'm sure that we have other battery backup systems throughout the county.
Correct.
And my question is that, are they compatible?
Compatible. This particular one I would deem as more of an industrial because it is the data center and it is the 911 dispatch, so it's a much larger infrastructure. So throughout the other areas, like the sheriff substations or over at the jail, they have smaller units. So this is much larger in size, but, so compatible, yes, but not comparable.
Okay. And it begs the question, the lifespan of these batteries.
They are on a 5-year plan. These particular ones are the only ones that go under a warranty. The other ones are, I guess, much less in cost and are replaceable every 5 years. So they're under a standard warranty that comes with them for 3 years. This particular unit, because it is industrial, we warranty and maintain them for 5 years as a separate cost. But they're the only ones in the county we do that for.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Commissioner Romano?
Thank you. Hi, Ms. Wilson.
Hi.
Hi. Mr. Carabelli asked the question, what was the normal life of the batteries? And you came up with the 5 years. Is that something that we see from our current vendor who states that it's 5-year life of these batteries? I mean, where do we come up with 5 years and not 10 years or 12 years?
It's been the practice. I'd say even part of what bringing this to the table is we had 3 that just failed this year in this particular Comtech building. So it is typically the industry of what we're seeing as experience as well.
So the vendor, the parties that tell you that it's time to replace these batteries, is this the same party or the same vendor that we're ordering the batteries from? I mean, is he the one that checked the batteries out? Do you understand my question? Maybe I'm not saying it
Well,
correctly.
the maintenance is actually procured through the supplier, so the people who build them, we actually go through a third-party vendor to procure them. So they are through different parties, but it is basically the builder of the batteries that are doing the maintenance on them and that we're paying for.
So are we buying the batteries from the builders, or are we buying them from a third-party vendor? Or we getting requests for proposal? I'm trying to figure out the chain here. Is it the same guy that's telling you the batteries are bad that's telling you we need to buy new batteries and we're buying it from him, or is it somebody completely different?
No, it is the same people.
It is the same people. They're telling you the batteries are bad and we're buying batteries from them.
Correct.
It's like when you go to your surgeon, it says you got a heart condition. He's the same guy's gonna operate on you.
But I'd say experience is showing us, like I said, we had 3 that failed this year, so, if there's something that would demonstrate these should last longer, we would absolutely consider extending that.
So we've had nobody else, and I'm not, please understand where I'm coming from. I'm not questioning your integrity on this, but my question is, we've got the same guy telling us the batteries are bad that the same guy we're buying the batteries from. So he has a stake in this. If you're found, instead of having a disinterested third party coming in and saying, these batteries aren't so bad, you should be good for another 3 or 4 years. This guy's saying, come on out, we need new batteries for $72,000. It just, I'm not comfortable with that. That's all I have. Thank you, Chair.
My question is, were the batteries defective? Is that how you found out? Like, I got a battery in my flashlight. My flashlight doesn't work, so I figure it's time to replace the batteries. Is it the same thing at your operation? Lights go out because the battery's not operating?
Well, yeah, and obviously, we don't want them to go out to a complete halt in those situations because they are the fail-safe to a power outage.
But do you have indications that know the battery's bad? Or
Not
starting to-
specifically, no.
Was there any indication at all that the battery was bad before you replaced
Well,
it?
there's usually a fail-safe, so there's a couple backups, so that if one's going bad, so we have that, so we're able to see when something does happen. And we'll do periodic testing occasionally, just to see how things work,
You got
but
me. Right.
it's
So-
about as protective as we can get.
So the first battery goes, is there an indicator that says this battery's gone, that's went to the
We'll get
defaulted
we have
to the
alert
second one?
messages. We have alert messages that something's been triggered.
So has that been triggered?
It has on these 3, that's how we were notified.
So
And
that's how
then-
you knew that they were starting to get bad, they were going
Correct.
bad? Okay, that's what I'm saying. Okay. All right. Thank you, pardon my intrusion, Commissioner Lucido.
Hi, thanks
Hi.
for coming. I guess my question is there's no way to predict that these are gonna go bad by when our new budget would kick in, January. I guess my question is why are we dipping into the general fund rather than this being a part of our next budget? And
This-
maybe Steve, this question for you, I'm not sure. I mean, we have 2 IT
Because we would dip into the
fund.
general fund next year as well. Either way, this would come out of general fund balance either way. Doesn't matter if it's 18 or 19, because this was not in the capital plan for 19. This is something cropped up over the summer when I think 3 failed in one day or in a matter of a few days.
Okay,
And so I think there's 95 or 96 of them.
120
There's
total.
100. So the idea was they all purchased at the same time. 3 went bad in a day.
right.
So the idea is they'll probably possibly start just failing one after another, if I remember Jayco's presentation originally.
Correct.
But back to your question is,
Right.
it comes out of fund balance in 18 or 19, because it's not in the capital plan either way.
And is there a reason why we can't buy them in increments rather than,
For this particular
$72,000?
location, this is the one location we don't do that for because it's the data center.
okay,
But any place else around the county, we 10 to 15 maybe per year, and we rotate that by age.
okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner, Chairman Smith.
Thank you. Hello, welcome.
Hi, thank you.
Now you get to see what Jaco goes through. So you did touch on one of my questions, that there's testing. And I know that when I'm thinking about my battery on my boat died, I don't know if I left the radio on or if I would take it and they would test it and they'd say, no, your battery has, plenty of charge or amps or whatever, the technical term is. And you mentioned something about testing. So I guess my question is, are these the type of batteries that on any type of regular basis for a lot less than $70,000 we could actually, run through tests on them? Or do we do that on a regular basis? Because 5 years is, we all know it's an arbitrary number. So it's just a manufacturer's recommendation that I'm sure it protects them, so to speak, but also makes them money. So they're covering on both sides of this. How do we do our testing on these type of batteries? You said there's 120 of them for that center?
That's correct.
Are they tested somewhat regularly, or you mentioned testing, so I don't.
So there was a large test in coordination with the emergency management team, and we actually brought Comtech down on a power outage for a weekend, or a 2-hour, 2-day test. And in that case, we used the backup, we test the generator, so there's a complete facility test. They don't do that annually, but that's probably the biggest test that I'm aware of that we do.
So I guess the testing is probably different than what I'm thinking. I'm thinking you test the batteries themselves to see how much
Correct.
charge
No.
and how much amperage they have, and that's a pretty typical thing, and I don't know these batteries if that's a test that's possible or not. So 3 out of 120 went bad?
Correct, at one time.
How many does it actually require to run the backup, do you know?
There are no spares, but I'm sure one battery can take the stress of another one if it fails, but I don't know.
So when the 3 went bad, was that on that test and it just stopped the whole?
There was alerting that goes bad, so we'll be notified by alerts, but yeah, in case of I guess the whole 120 or a larger portion of them, the intent is that we're getting notified as there's some kind of capacity difference.
That's fine. I know that there was 30,000. So Steve, is this going to be in the future general or capital projects request then? If you're planning on doing this every 5 years, is this going to be, because I know that we give $30,000 a year apparently to replace batteries in general, but
Yeah.
this wasn't, can you explain?
I'll have to talk to, I can't explain,
Right.
because
Because
when Jaco presented his plan for UPS battery replacements, my assumption is that includes countywide. Apparently not, so I need to talk to him about how that factors into future capital plans.
Right, so you can see kind of why we would be a little confused, because it's already in there, but it's apparently not even close to enough, at least when you're looking at replacing the whole
Yeah,
batch at
exactly.
once.
What's contemplated in that $30,000? I'm not sure, so I'll have to talk with Jaco and see, fold this in at least 5 years out if it's passed
And if
today.
it looks like Jaco sent back or Shannon this afternoon, sent back some information saying that like almost 13,000 of the 30 has been spent, which leaves 17 left. Then I think the question Commissioner Romano had is, can we buy $17,000 worth of them and have them on, because we all know, that they're not all gonna go out at the same time. It just doesn't happen that way. Every battery, you can have some of them that are gonna last for 15 years, that would last. So I think that's where the questioning is coming, and that some of the things you may or may not know about, that there was a budget, every
I do know
30
there's the
grand a year for this
30,000,
type of thing.
And there's about 200 plus UPSs throughout the county that are much smaller in scale. And those are the ones that get replaced maybe 10 a year, and that's what the 30,000 represents.
Right.
So this Comtech one is not part of that 30,000.
Right. So you have to understand, that that wasn't part of it, so here's 72, and a couple of weeks ago, we get 500. I'm not from you guys, but it just comes and all these things that we don't really know are coming, and we're looking at a budget that's already tight, so I think that's why all these commissioners are asking these questions, because every meeting, we're getting something coming out of the general fund that we didn't expect. And it's interesting sitting up here trying to figure out when you say no to different things, or if you do.
Right.
So anyway,
And I can follow up with Jaco and make sure that as we go forward, I know he's planning because it is a 5-year renewal on this one and he can't phase it out, that it will be a 5-year expenditure, and he'll make sure he does that going forward.
right. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Commissioner Carabelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Two quick questions. Number one, there's 120 of them, you already replaced 3. So the 72,000 is for 117 of them?
It is for the full 120. The 3 were replaced under a warranty under an existing vendor. When we went out to bid, they will be replaced by the new vendor.
Okay. The next question I have, the disparity and the bids that came back. You had from $2.5 million
Yeah.
down to 72. That doesn't make me feel real warm and fuzzy, because I don't understand how it can be that high. Can you
I would-
explain?
I wish I could. The 2 million was just off the charts, to be completely honest. The other ones were much closer in volume. I don't know where 2 million comes from. And there's no justification in the SOW.
And then the current company that you're working with, are they on a contract with us?
They are an existing vendor that we use,
A vendor as in what?
just a company we've purchased with for many years.
Okay, let me rephrase that question. Are they a vendor that you purchased with that's been ongoing for decades?
Yes,
Okay.
that's my understanding.
Is there a way we can take a look at that and see if we can go back out with an RFP to see suppliers or RFQ, however you want to do it, to see somebody else in the mix? It's just, I get bids all over the place, and one comes in at $2.5 million down to 72, but yet the 72 happens to be the vendor that works for us. And I don't know, my math may be off a little bit, but it's not adding up.
I would agree. I mean, going to the bid, I think it shed a light on the different costs that can come back, so to continue that practice.
So, thank you, thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers? We have a motion on this? We do have a motion.
Yep.
Please vote. Motion passes 8-0.
Hold on. It's wrong. Yeah, recheck it.
7-4, motion passes. Commissioner Leon Gillette voted no. Chairman Smith voted no. Commissioner Carabelli voted no. Commissioner Romano voted no. All right. Next item is 6D, court view enhancements. That's for you too.
So this is a capital fund item for the court view enhancements of $53,370. This includes 4 different system enhancements and the implementation by court view. And there's 4 different functionality changes that will occur. And this is just an ongoing growth. I don't know if you want any details about the functionality changes. I know the information was provided, but I'd be happy to walk through that. I don't know if Anthony was able to. Yes.
Can we get an overview of the program? That's court view, that's the stuff from the court we've been implementing for years.
Overview of the changes.
Yeah.
Okay. So Anthony, I don't know if you want to interject?
Good afternoon. I'm Anthony June. I'm the
Speak
court's-
closer to the mic so we can have you,
Good
please.
afternoon. I'm Anthony June. I'm the Court's Information Systems Director. So CourtView is our primary business application. It's our case management system. All of our case records, updates, dockets, events, the judges' calendars, everything is in CourtView. So specifically with these enhancements, the first one is an export application that is going to work with our document management system, which is OnBase, and the Michigan statewide e-filing system, which is MyFile. That is going to work between those two systems to make sure that case updates happen in a real-time basis. when we're creating new cases, when we're updating case events, updating judges' information. We're making sure that we're keeping those other systems up to date so that when a filer goes online to make a filing, they have the correct information. And the same thing when the court views documents in the document manager system, they have updated information from the court view case manager system.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions on that? Commissioner Carabelli?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This specific item that's being requested is an enhancement to the current court view system
Correct.
that we purchased.
It actually would be in a separate application. It would be an add-on application.
Okay, because the way I understand it, we designed the software the software that's working now, and IT does the communication between it all.
Correct.
Okay.
And it's not an application that was designed, but more or less a script process where there's nightly feeds that feed that information to those systems on a nightly basis. So this would actually be an application that's online and providing those updates in more of a real-time basis.
Okay, my question for you is this a life-threatening thing from what we have right now?
Absolutely not, no.
No. Is this a need or a want?
This is a need.
This is a need. So if we don't do this, we'll continue doing it the way we're doing it.
If we don't do this, we will continue to have delays in our case manager system, our document management system, and our electronic filing system. So I'll give you a use case scenario. So currently, when a filer creates a new case at our court, they cannot subsequently go online and file anything into that new case. They have to wait potentially 1 to 1.5 business days.
So this is for the person filing for the court?
Correct.
Or attorneys?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
And then it's also for the internal court staff, because when they make case updates or changes, those updates won't be realized additionally till
This
another.
isn't life-threatening, it's a.
No, it's not a
this is-
life-threatening.
This
I
is
would,
something as a convenience, it's more of a want than a need. This makes it more convenient for people to use it and a little bit faster, but it's not,
Well, let him answer the question.
okay, go ahead.
I guess I would categorize it as a need because we currently see delays in providing that type of service to the filers and also to our internal staff. But yes, I agree with you. It's not life-threatening. I guess you could categorize it as a
Let me ask the
want.
question this way. How long has we been doing it the way we've been doing it?
We've been doing it this way since, it would be probably the second quarter of 2015, so a little bit over 3 years.
Okay, so over 3 years, we've been doing it this way, and what did we do before the 3 years?
We had manual updates. There was no updating to the
Who
system.
did the manual update?
The staff, court staff.
Court staff, okay.
They would have to basically do dual data entry in multiple systems.
So for 3 years, we've been able to operate like this, and this is the first I'm hearing about it coming up for this. And there's I believe it's almost $2,000 yearly maintenance fee that'll go on forever.
More?
More? 5,000? So
I believe that's correct, yes.
I'll be real honest with you, unless somebody tells me differently, this is, in my book, a want, and at this time, I can't personally support it. I'm just one commissioner. Thank you.
Sure, I
Thank you,
understand.
Mr. Chairman.
Explain to me what the role the staff has in manually updating. The person that has to wait a day and a half, well, maybe they can wait a day and a half, but how does it impact our staff again and what they're doing behind the scenes to expedite the court? We just got rid of a clerk because she was gumming up the works because we got behind on things. I don't want us to be going down the same road so explain to me a little bit about that.
I think for the staff, a lot of it comes in with just people making inquiries as to why is my case not online? Why is it not updated? Why can I not electronically file into it? The same thing with, like, for example, adjournments on existing cases. They may say, why aren't my adjournments, available? The judges may not have a event that's been adjourned that they can attach documents to in our on-base system. So there are different scenarios where the delays do impact the staff, and it does require additional effort, either manually or just a wait on the staff to then process that information.
Okay. Commissioner Romano.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for coming. So I'm reading this, some of the background material, and it says, this application will save court staff a great amount of time when there are business rule changes, case reassignments, or location changes that require updates on a large number of cases. So that's great. So my question would be, is this going to eliminate one employee if we come up with this kind numbers for you? Is it gonna eliminate somebody? Because we're gonna apparently streamline a whole bunch of stuff. Will that eliminate one employee?
I believe, if you're referring to the CourtView 2 Update Express, which is
Yes.
that application that provides those type of real updates, I don't think it's gonna eliminate any staff. I think ultimately it's gonna allow the court to make a large number of changes when we have big impacts to our caseload. I mean, we have about 20,000 cases per year. We have millions of cases in our system. When we receive a new judgeship, when we make caseload changes, when we make location changes, that is a large impact on staff to make those changes, and they have to do it really on a case-by-case basis currently. This would automate that ability so that we can do more case updates and make those changes and roll with those impacts quicker and provide that as a service to the litigants who come before the court. One example would be is we have to create a caseload for Judge Marlinga. We did that last year, and when we did that, we had to basically move 40,000 cases in addition to events to that judge. That was a very time-intensive process because we had to do it very granular. This would allow us to make more updates in more of a single process or fewer processes so that we can make those updates happen and it's quicker, it provides access. I think the Judge Malinga caseload move, took us weeks to do that. So this is something where we could probably accomplish very similar tasks in an amount of days, maybe hours.
Sounds good. So I just want to get back on one other thing that was mentioned here. So as of right now, we do have a delay, and it's probably about a day and a half on the system we're using right now. Is that correct?
That is correct. If you file a new case in our court at the clerk's office and you want to go subsequently file something online, it will not be there.
Thank you very much. Thank you,
welcome.
Chair.
Thank you. Chairman Smith.
Thank you, Anthony. Thanks for coming. Listen, so you don't get to sit down and listen to a lot of this, but our budget's getting to the point where we as commissioners are seeing it, kind of tightening up in the next few years with general fund dollars, and for the last few months we've been getting a lot of requests that haven't been on the capital project projected list. So a lot of us are starting to look at, is it a convenience or is it an absolute need? And so I just want to, no one's questioning the fact that this is going to help in the court and that you're not, you're bringing us something that's frivolous. But I think you just need to, hear that. We've had a lot of money, but and this isn't a ton of money when in the big scheme of things, but it adds up, right? So when you look at a day and a half of inconvenience and not being able to add something to, your case after you filed it, even being an attorney, it sucks, but it is not, talk to Commissioner Carabelli, it is more of, I see of a want and a need when you're just saving a little bit of time or helping the public. I understand people are calling and taking up time of the staff to answer questions on what's going on, but I just want to explain to you, at least from my perspective on what everybody's questioning is more big picture. What are we doing with, where are we going with this? So I just wanted to point that out to you, so thank you.
I understand. You're welcome.
So we have a new judge coming in next year, don't we?
We do.
So we'll be moving a lot of records around, right?
We will be.
So,
I anticipate that would be a domestic judge, but again, that's subject to our chief judge.
sure.
But yeah, we're talking about thousands and thousands of cases.
Sure. So
in
this
addition to
might
that-
help it out a little bit, might.
This will help it out. We're also moving probate to the downtown campus area. This will obviously help making adjustments to location, pre-existing events, and then being able to move those dockets around.
There was a former clerk here that took away the credit card reading machines and made them run the credit cards manually to save them efficiencies and whatever reason that she thought, but it kind of moved us back to the dark ages a little bit because it was a penny wise and a pound foolish. Commissioner Gillette?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for your presentation. Would it be conceivable legally or in some way, because it sounds like, well, first, it sounds like this would provide a service to the county, but in some ways more to those that are interacting with the courts, the attorneys, those that are filing cases and so forth. Would it be possible to add $1 to the filing fee to cover the cost of this?
I think on a statewide level, obviously there'd have to be some legislative changes, but I guess keep in mind too, not all courts in Michigan, there's 244 trial courts, they don't all use CourtView. So
But could we as a county charge $1 or 50 cents or whatever it costs, add it to some existing fees, and maybe you're familiar with the system, but not as familiar with what we can or can't do, through the state law. So you might not have the answer, but just curious if this is actually a cost of doing business, and it's a benefit to the attorneys and others that are filing cases. Shouldn't we pass on that benefit cost to the party that's primarily benefiting from it as a 50-cent per transaction fee? If it's going to deal with thousands of filings, and it's going to cost us $5,000 a year, it's probably 50 cents a filing or something along those lines.
I think we've actually already seen that happen with statewide e-fine, and that's why there actually is a filing convenience fee for electronic filing now that's added to every case that's opened up in Michigan.
Okay.
That money goes to the state to support a statewide e-filing endeavor. So we don't.
Do we as a county receive any funds directly through filings?
We do not.
Okay, so that might be challenging to implement if it was a small fee and we don't have a system to do it. But I wonder if that would be possible, because again, I don't know if I don't know who would be able to answer how that question, but it sounds like that would be the way to pay for this, is to have those that are benefiting primarily, pay the fee.
Sure, and I completely appreciate that, and I think from the filer community, you'd have to put it to them to see if they'd be willing to pay for something like that.
Well, if they're not willing, they can wait a day and a half, I guess.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Chairman Smith.
Thanks. When we get compared to not doing something like this that will save a day and a half to Karen Springer taking away credit card things, I have to respond to what you said earlier, that 3 years ago they were doing everything manually, which I imagine was a big change when they put the current system in place. So we're not reverting back to the dark ages by not going for another change on things. We are actually in a pretty good age right now that this would make things more convenient. I am not doubting that, but we are not regressing back to the dark ages by not, if we didn't do this.
The only other thing I would comment on too is that from a caseload perspective, our electronic filing transactions are not our entire caseload either, and I know that eventually we will be fully e-filing. So from a transactional level and a system level, I would want to make sure that we have a very strong interface, integration with other applications that supports that higher volume. Because right now our civil cases, our appeals cases, DOs and PPOs, but that does not include all of our full domestic docket, also does not include our criminal docket. So it might be a day and a half today, but when you start adding the rest of the volume of our caseload, those delays could go up from a transactional level. So that would be my concern too, not taking action today.
So, I mean, this is an electronic software program. How long does this take to actually enact? If we found that this was really turning into a week delay or whatever is unacceptable, and I'm kind of fresh, I don't really know what's acceptable and not acceptable. I mean, it is something that could be looked at in the future. I guess that's my point. When you come to us, mid or end of year, while we're looking at budgets and we're having trouble kind of even reckoning a lot of the things that are coming to us in the future budget, and again, I point, it's not just you, all right? I mean, so we're not picking on you, although it probably feels like it right now.
No problem.
It makes the questioning, I think, even a little more focused and a little tougher on someone bringing new money in that wasn't a part of what we'd even planned for capital projects. So I'll keep explaining to you that there's a lot more going on here.
And I understand, and I think from the court's perspective, because we rely on the funding unit from the county, on an annual basis, I'm submitting a court budget. I submit that to Jaco and his department. I work with them and answer any questions. A lot of these items are not new. They've been on our list for quite some time. And I know that because of the budget, there is more of a scrutiny, and I think you are doing a great job in asking questions, and we should be responding as departments to tell you this is how we're going to utilize it, this is how we're going to benefit it. So
and that's a good point. And I know that we have asked, Steve, if you don't mind, I know that we have asked to see a list of, of these projects that were. Oh, you did? Oh, I'm sorry. So I didn't catch up. I didn't catch on it.
It's okay. You don't need to answer.
You sent them today.
It was later. It was early afternoon,
That's
so
fine.
it's
Sounds like an answer.
hot off the press, so to speak.
Right. So I mean, this does give us a chance to kind of look at some of the things and maybe get a whole different perspective on whether they were thought about in the past and proposed, but not put on the the capital projects list. So thanks.
You're welcome.
My concern is, Commissioners, that this program, this relatively minor expenditure in our budget, I'll agree with you about everything else about the budget. We want to talk about serious, substantial budget cuts. I'm all for it, but seems to me that you're making an example of, you want to make it, you're picking this little thing out, make it to prove a point, and it's wrong. They've got a bunch of records they're going to be moving. We're going to be doing it many. How you said that one judge is coming over to moving the whole probate court over here downtown. There's records flying all over the place. When those employees are spending all their time and effort doing something that needn't take so long, I mean, because we had the technology available to do it, and it sounds like maybe this has been behind the scenes, wanting to get up here for a lot longer than this. I don't know. For me, I think we ought to be supporting something like this because it's the smart way to do things. It's a tool, for Christ's sake. Anyway, Commissioner Tocco.
Thank you. Anthony, what are the other counties doing? Is theirs up in real time as well? Are they utilizing this program?
There may be. I can't speak to other counties as to the time frame and how long it takes for a case. I do know that Oakland and Wayne specifically, I know that they are initiating cases online, and there is no delay because they're initiating those cases online. We have reached out to the state to prioritize case initiation for us as well, but it's just not something that we're currently pursuing. Even if we had case initiation online, and there wouldn't be that delay when it came for the filers, there still would be similar delays that the court staff would receive. So it may fix one part of the problem, but not the full problem for us as a court.
So what is case initiation online?
With the statewide e-filing program, both Oakland and Wayne use a hosted version of OnBase. And that hosted version allows them to initiate a case online versus going to the clerk's office to file the case in paper.
Okay, and why don't we do that?
We've asked the state to support us on expanding that, and we have not received a response yet regarding time. We've received a response as in they're busy trying to get the other pilot courts up and running. So this project, we are not just be giving a priority in this project at this point.
Okay, so if they do, because this is a 5-year plan, correct?
With the statewide project?
No, what we have now, what you're asking for.
Correct. Mhm.
It's for 5 years. So today we would be committing 52,000, or is it 53,000 for 5 years, each year? So what if the state does take us on,
It's one.
I think the maintenance is ongoing, but the initial cost includes the upfront licensing cost, which would not repeat for 5 years.
It's the initial $53,000 payment. Then there's 5 a year after that.
Okay, so this covers us for 5 years?
This would license us currently, and those licenses would continue, and the maintenance would have to cover each year.
Okay, and then if the state did let us do the filing that you were speaking of, would this still be useful to us?
Yes, absolutely. Because
Okay.
like I said, if we were even initiating cases online, which we are not today, it would only solve the filer's delay. It wouldn't solve any case delays on our side of things when it comes to processing inside of the house, which is between CourtView and our OnBase, which is our document management system.
Okay, so if I understand correctly, what this will allow you, your office to do, so if somebody comes in and files a new case today, that won't be up online until,
Potentially the next day, if not later in the day. So maybe a day and a half,
okay.
we're talking.
So this will put it on immediately?
It would actually happen in real time. So as
Okay.
soon as the person leaves the clerk's counter, it would be online within minutes.
Okay, and then you said that there were other functions that it would assist you in, what were those?
When the courts actually adjourn cases, they have to then, this is be a very specific example. If a court adjourns a case, the clerk has to go back into that case in our document management system and add all of the documents and all of the metadata that they associated with that for the judge to review again for a second time. This type of an updating process would have that happen in real time, and they would be able to tie a lot of things in where they wouldn't have to manually go back and repeat steps that they've already taken on our dockets. This is a huge impact to our docketing support. So our judicial court clerks who work in the courtrooms, this is going to help them out because they're not going to have those delays anymore, and it'll happen more of a real-time basis. So that's a very specific example for our judicial court clerks.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Chairman Smith.
Commissioner Brown, you keep giving me things that I want to stop talking, but you keep saying things.
I have to go to confession, I'm sorry.
You know, and we're not picking on this, you know, we're picking on $53,000, but then it was $72,000 a minute ago that we didn't know about, and that's $125,000. And it doesn't take long for it to add up to real money. So
Listen,
I mean,
we run a big county here. We got a lot of expenses. We got a big organization to support. It requires money, my friends. And I've seen this happen before where the board's been a pound foolish. They turn something and then they come back later on and it's a bigger crisis now and they need it and they can't wait to get it in sooner than later.
am I up still or no?
You raised my name, so I wanted to make sure. And I'm
right.
chairing the committee too, so I
All right.
got privileges now.
Well, you are correct that we don't want to be penny foolish or pound foolish and penny wise or whatever, but you know, it requires a lot of money to run our county, but we don't have infinite amount of money. So when we're looking at things, we have to scrutinize things. So you can say that we need to, you know, everybody that comes in front of us really thinks they need what they need, and I appreciate the enthusiasm with which they bring it, but there's only so much to go around. That's why we're questioning this, and most of us don't understand this. So it's kind of, you know, the IT things that come before us. I mean, it's tough to get your head around, then add court to it, and most of us, you know, don't get that either. So don't, again, I mean, this is something that's been going on for the last few weeks, and a lot of questioning, and especially when it gets to confusing things like this, so.
I just would like to make one other statement that from a statewide perspective, we have been making several efforts, and I've been making my own inquiries as to how is this actually going to help us locally, and how is it actually going to help us on a funding level as well. They're capturing these e-filing convenience fees from all plaintiffs that file cases, potentially for the next 5 years. When are we ever going to see any of that funding? I don't think we are, and I think that's why it's hard for us as a court to then go back to our funding unit to rely on them to provide us costs and benefits to these type of projects. So we always do look for outside resources. We try not to go to the local funding unit if we don't have to, and the court will continue to do that through statewide e-filing and any other statewide initiative that affects the courts.
Commissioner Gillette.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for recognizing me for a second time. I'm wandering a bit off topic here, but you brought up the statewide e-filing system, and you mentioned that Oakland and Wayne County participate in that system, and that we've requested to participate in that system, but we haven't been granted approval yet by the state government, I guess. And then you just referenced the fact that there is monies that come from that e-filing system that I assume then Wayne and Oakland County are receiving, and we are not receiving. Are we paying, in some ways Macomb County residents or constituents or citizens paying toward that statewide e-filing system too, but not getting, are we not getting approved for using it? Is that costing us, and who does that cost?
Anybody that files a case in a trial court today has to pay an e-filing convenience fee.
So even in Macomb?
Even in Macomb, in Oakland and Wayne, and it's not that Wayne and Oakland are receiving some type of a check from the state. I guess more or less they both were on non-vendor supported systems previously.
Okay.
They had to transition away from their other systems to the current statewide vendor, which is ImageSoft. When they did that, ImageSoft had developed the statewide platform that they are currently using. It's a hosted version of the same software that we use, which is OnBase, but essentially they had to stand that up for them. So they didn't really receive a check, but in other words, that statewide project covered the cost of development to implement that software in their jurisdictions.
And we could do the same here if the state would simply approve us.
If we did the same, if we implemented a hosted version of OnBase, it would be us, like the chairman said, going backwards. It would literally be us going backwards to what we've developed as an installation and an investment in the OnBase system we have today.
So why do we ask for the e-filing system from the state if we don't want it? Because this moves us backwards.
Well, I guess more or less it's not that we're asking for the statewide e-filing system, but we're asking for support to expand our cases. So I'm more or less talking about support in being able to expand what we offer from a case type level, and also what options they have when they can file cases, but not necessarily that we're going to be switching software platforms.
Is that a requirement of receiving any of that e-filing money under the current law?
We do not.
No, I mean, in other words, if we wanted to do what you just explained, would we be eligible to receive some state funding to do that process through the e-filing system, even though we're not switching specifically to that system? Or is that something that's outside of your?
No. My understanding as it stands right now with statewide e-filing and the funding that is collected on every case that's filed in trial courts is that supports the statewide e-filing initiative, and that's where that money is going towards the vendor and towards the system that they're standing up. We already utilize that system. We were a pilot court. We've already developed our on-base system internally here in-house, so it's a premise-based, on-base solution.
So we qualify for some of that money if we could get it approved?
I guess there is no qualification that I'm aware of. So I'm not aware of that we're going to be able to apply or receive any funding to defer the costs of these systems.
So then how did we ask the state for that money? You mentioned a request was made.
A request was made to support our expanding of e-filing in Macomb, not necessarily to receive funding. I have inquired as to financial, and because of those fees being collected, as to are the courts going to receive some type of a stipend or some type of cost to defer our expenses, and I don't believe we are, and I haven't received anything from the state otherwise today.
So it takes a lot to understand a kind of a complicated system that I'm not familiar with. Would it be fair to say, accurate to say, that we are, every time somebody files here in Macomb County, they're paying for some of this e-filing fee, which goes to the state, that we're not getting anything back from, and that is that accurate?
Well, I guess we're benefited by the fact that we are no longer paying support for that vendor, which we were doing locally before. Now the state is picking up that support cost.
Okay.
So there is a benefit when it comes to the county locally is not paying for support or maintenance on a system that now the state has taken over as a project. So I guess we're not receiving any money back, but we're also not expending further money with maintenance and support costs.
So then I guess I'm a little confused. What exactly we were asking the state for again, really simplified?
We're just asking the state to support us in getting attention from the statewide vendor, which is Imitsoft, to support us on moving forward with additional cases without spending any additional costs.
And what would that support consist of?
Them supporting development efforts to enable case initiation online for us and to enable any other case type workflow that we haven't got into. And those examples would be domestic case filings, criminal case filings, and one's very specific one is adoptions.
Okay, so when you say we've asked the state, is that the court's asking? Is that you asking the executive or our lobbyist or?
The court asking the state court administrative office for support on their project side of things.
Okay.
It is the state court administrative office, which is the administrative arm of the Michigan Supreme Court, that is the project owner of that statewide e-filing project.
Would it benefit the courts if we had our county lobbyist working at the state level?
Yes.
Do you know if that's taken place?
I don't believe so.
I know Supreme Court Justice.
Well, I would hope that, we do employ a lobbyist here in Macomb County, and this is a state need, and it sounds like it would be a benefit to us. I would hope
I would
that
take any help.
Yeah, I would hope that, that something that we could be asking our lobbyists to work on, that maybe we have and maybe we haven't, but it doesn't sound like you're overly optimistic at the moment.
I'm not, because they have a very aggressive wave schedule with the entire, again, like I said earlier, there's 244 trial courts that they want to get live with e-filing. And I would definitely steer away from making any comparisons to what we do in Macomb, because we are more advanced. We've been e-filing since 2010. We've been almost 10 years in the game now. Our system is not a comparison to what they're providing to those other courts that are not e-filing now, but I think that's their focus, is to get e-filing up and running in those courts that are not doing anything electronic. And I think that's where we're already e-filing, and we are not going to have as a strong attention focus from them. But I have been told that with their project that they are eventually going to come back to all the pilots, that includes Oakland and Wayne, and try to make sure that they support us expanding to the rest of our caseload, which we have not done, and neither has Oakland or Wayne County.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Commissioner Dujay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I find it interesting, the discussion here. I'm not quite sure how the flow goes, but correct me if I'm wrong. Not all cases are relevant to the state. There are cases that are relevant to the county, to the city, the township, and so on and so forth. So some things, the state, it's immaterial what's going on in the state as far as what's going on in certain courtrooms. Is that correct?
I would say that as to the case types across the state are a focus of the state, but I think some of the local concerns we have here is not a part of the scope of the statewide e-filing project.
That's exactly what where I'm getting to. I think a lot of this has to do with efficiencies and built-in efficiencies going forward. We are adding another judge. We are expanding the prosecuting department. We're expanding the clerk's department with people. And I think it's important that we stay ahead of the curve efficiency-wise. By the look of it, we might not be able to cut a person off of it, but we're going to be able to cut people away from doing this as far as paperwork and get it done faster and have them have the ability for them to concentrate on something else. I think for the money that's involved in this and getting ahead of the curve, I think this is a good idea, and I frankly support it. I think going forward, as times get tougher, this is going to help us save in the future. That being said, if you have a motion yet, I'll make a motion to accept.
Okay, I'll take that motion. There's support. Support by Commissioner Kraft. Commissioner Carabelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple quick questions, not to belabor this. I thought you said that the new judge is hopefully going to be domestic. Is that what you said?
I'm speculating.
Yeah.
I don't know because it's
No, I know,
obviously the
but
chief
you-
judge's decision.
Right, but you said you're hoping that it
It
probably
may be domestic.
So with that said, did I also understand a little while ago that you said also that domestic isn't even on this system?
That's correct. And our front of the court is on a legacy on-base system as
I
well.
appreciate, again, I'm a little slower than everybody else up here, so we're not doing domestic currently, and the new judge that everybody says we're having a new judge with more people, well, they're not even on the system yet doing this.
Well, if he's
The
domestic.
second thing, excuse me?
If he's domestic, yeah, he might be a different court.
But
though,
as
right?
of right
Point
now,
of
I'm going on the information that.
Anthony, don't we do domestic, the DOs on court, on this?
We do, but that does not include domestic filings with minor children, support,
But
paternity.
there is some domestic on there.
There is. It is a single case type.
Okay, I'm
mean,
just
it's quite a
taking the
bit.
information that I'm getting and listening to. So I go back and I look at this. It sounds like Macomb County in 2010 was one of the first, the Fast and the Furious. We got it before everybody else, and we're the best of the best. It only costs money. With that said, Oakland and Wayne that are getting onto the system now, is the state paying for that?
Only for the hosted solution. They're not paying for anything internally that they're doing.
Okay.
They actually still use their own document management system, so they actually replicate a lot of things.
Okay, then the next question is, when you bring everybody else online that isn't even online yet, that we have, you know, whatever isn't currently used, you said there's gonna be more into it, that's gonna cost more money to probably expand the program, correct?
I believe, yes, absolutely.
So there's gonna be an added cost there.
If we were going to go to the vendor directly today and say, we want to expand to civil case initiation, they're going to come back with a statement of work.
Right, so at that time, this can be done at that time as well, could it not? What you're asking for today?
Sure, I believe so. What I'm not sure of is that, is anybody else going to pay for it but us anyways?
Well, if there's a chance somebody else is gonna pay for it, it's better than 100% us paying for it right now, in my opinion. So the next question is, the program that we're on, the court view, is that the same court view that everybody else is using?
No, actually, there's only 5 courts in Michigan that use Courtview. It's us, Kent County, Wayne Probate, Monroe, and I'm sorry, the last one's fleeting me
It
right
doesn't
now.
matter.
Yeah, but
So with that
very,
said,
very small
Do
minority.
you think that maybe once everybody's online, they may say, hey, here's the platform, we're all going to this type thing, and we're gonna be paying for the, you know, you're paying for the original part, but you're gonna have to pay for the initial upfront, but they're gonna pick up the costs after that. Because it sounds like we may be in a trick bag, and they may not be having us use Courtview down the road once everybody's together, and it may be a new program, which happens, I get. So I get, again, at this time, being that we're gonna have more stuff going on to this, and it can be added at that time, at our dime anyways, if not, hopefully somebody else. We've done it for 3 years, and I haven't heard it about it other than now. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I respect everybody's opinions. There are no more speakers. There's motion made and supported. Please vote. And the winner is The ayes have it, 6-5. Thank you very much.
That's close.
Well, oh, the noes are Leanne Roulette, Commissioner Lucido, Commissioner Smith, Commissioner Carabelli, and Commissioner Romano. That's going forward to finance. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Next items are budget reviews. Planning Economic Development, John Paul Rea. Just tee it up for them each, Mr. Schmiegel, and they'll follow behind you.
Veronica's not here, Rob isn't here.
Page
Please.
273 of your agenda was just on. Thought I spoke loud enough anyway. Anyway, 273 of your agenda, page C50 of the budget document, if that's what your point of reference is.
42, please.
Pardon?
42 is our sheets.
Best not to say anything, just.
I'm hoping we're all on the same page at this point. So anyway, planning budget's about $3.6 million. We've added one person, which we added in the summer of this year. I think it was an associate planner position. So you'll see the additional 1/2 of a year flowing through the wages and the benefits. The total budget for the planning department is going up about 6% from 2018 to 19. Again, part of that's because of the extra half a year of the wages and the benefits, plus benefit increases that we've spoken about ad nauseum in every department, as well as an additional $40,000 in contract services, which Mr. Rea can speak to much more authoritatively than I can. So it's the extent of my comments.
Okay, JP.
No resounding support from the finance director. Commissioners, as always, thank you for the opportunity to speak here this afternoon. Before you is a budget request for the 2019 operating budget for the Department of Planning and Economic Development. With me today are a few of our key team members, Vicki Redd, our Deputy Director, Mr. James Ahi, our Program Manager of Economic Development, and frankly, the person that is the most integral on staff, Jennifer Belch, our Chief Admin, and if it wasn't for her, all of our bills wouldn't be paid, and I would have no idea what's going on with the budget. So, Jenny, thank you. Today, just want to go over with you a few of the recommendations that we have coming from our budget. As you are intricately aware, obviously our team is devised up into 4 strategic work groups in our administrative team. A number of resounding successes throughout the year, as you have in your supplemental budget material that we provided, whether it's the $400 million of investment, which was a record year for the county's economic development services, whether it's the 13 communities that we provided local community resources for, whether it's the modernized parks and natural resources programming, which is adding interdepartmental efficiencies from everyone from public works to health and human services, or the nearly 1.5 million individuals that we've reached through our promotional campaigns under the umbrella efforts of Make Macomb Your Home, Macomb Business, and One Macomb. I think we're really modernizing the way that we're engaging individuals, looking at both quality of life and economic development efforts here, and I think the proof in our concept is really starting to show, not only in the resources that were provided through this process, but through the many grant requests that we've brought here through the board throughout the year. This year, what we're really looking at from a staffing perspective are 2 key elements. The first of which is a tremendous priority for us in our department, and that is this reclassification strategy that we've been rolling out and been modernizing with our friends in human resources and in finance. As individuals within our department in professional positions have been able to not only go through the class and compensation study, but has also looked at the whole notions of professional certifications, we're looking to establish the parameters for an employee retention and professional development program within our department. Using similar criteria that's been used for nurses and engineers throughout the county, we think that we're looking at something that not only gives us an opportunity to provide a professional development track and retain those employees that have helped us build the department, but I think more importantly, it's put us on a more stable foundation as opposed to us every 6 weeks being in the conference room bringing on new staff members. We have a hell of an excellent team down there. Frankly, in my opinion, maybe one of the best in the entire state of Michigan, and myself and Vicki are very much committed to ensuring that we keep this team as close as possible to this department. The other thing that we're also looking to propose in front of you all this year is a consideration for a new associate level planner position. As we've not only engaged our Land and Water Resources Division to rethink the way we look at parks and natural resources planning, we've not only seen an increased demand from our locals and service providers, whether it's local communities that have asked us to take on the responsibilities for developing comprehensive parks and natural resources strategies, or it's working with the HCMA to deploy multi-million-dollar grant programs that are doing everything from cleaning up marshlands to looking at beach nourishment programs. We've also received a tremendous amount of partnership through our interdepartmental networks. As I've said, we're doing some pretty modern things with our friends over at Public Works when it looks at some of their greening initiatives. Health and Community Services has been a really interesting outreach when we look at our wellness and health programs. And I think most interestingly, as we've really looked at the way that we're deploying our non-motorized programming with the Department of Roads, I think there's not only a pent-up need here, but I think not only through the successes that we've had in Green Macomb, bringing nearly $750,000 of federal funds through the county, we're also expanding the service network and resources we're getting to the locals from everything from green infrastructure to tree planting. On the next two slides, more or less gives an overview of the increases that we're looking for in this budget, nominal in scope to the $3.6 million that we're asking total, but as was brought up before, every penny adds up. Whether it's an increase in membership and dues to help us with our professional certifications, as we've added 3 new American Institute of Certified Planners to our staff this year, individuals that have went out, taken a certification exam, and received the credentials to do additional planning work for us. Out-of-state travel is probably one of the most prominent that you'll see, and I think it's not only justified by the attraction efforts that we've done, whether it's bringing in a $40 million attraction deal with Sapa Transmission, which is a Spanish-based company that makes transmissions for Bradley tanks. That's part of the defense outreach strategies that we've been able to deploy through Select USA and AUSA, but also through a P4 initiative that we're putting together with Selfridge and the Defense Communities Partnership. Conferences and seminars are a big one too as far as some of our professional development certification. Cell phones and cards is just more or less a maintenance one as we're developing more mobile applications and also putting more hardware and software in the field, whether we're doing work directly with our 850 clients that we engaged with last year, or more importantly, being able to be more mobile with the way that we deploy our services. And then meeting expenses have more or less increased from the standpoint of we're doing more strategic outreach, whether it's our quarterly partners meetings, which have been really successful as far as developing that rapport with our local communities, or more trade-specific engagements where we brought together 50 key developers around the county last week and facilitated a conversation about industrial zoning and site plan elements. The last thing that I'll leave you with as we went over the past 3 years is probably our largest operating expense, which is our contractual services. Each year we look to put a pretty modern and robust contractual services outline, which has given us the ability to deploy some pretty inventive services. I think the most important one to us is the Protect and Grow initiative out of the state of Michigan. Focusing on defense, cyber, and mobility, we have been able to scale up a massive supercluster in defense, which has put us on the forefront of, again, receiving a $40 million North American headquarter in Sapa. Also, the Veterans Care Facility that's going to be up on Sugar Bush. Last week's announcement with the Eisenhower Center coming to Selfridge as a part of the Veterans Care Services that we're doing. These are tens of millions of dollar deals that are flowing through our community through the efforts of Vicki and our economic development team, and I think not only should be celebrated, but are very much a strategic return on investment from this programming. Following the state's playbook and pushing a lot of those efforts, whether they be in DC or on our installations, I think we're not only focused on modern force deployment, but more importantly, doing some cutting-edge things with some of those 650 defense contractors that are here in the community. The business innovation and mobilization and entrepreneurship services come from strategic engagement that we've had with Velocity in the city of Sterling Heights in repurposing the way that we look at entrepreneurial services and our support services out of the business incubator. When we look at what institutional research is bringing forward under the new leadership at Oakland University, the contributions that we're getting from the city of Sterling Heights over at the incubator, we want to refresh those network and ensure that we have some resources to not only deploy some more business mobilization services, but more importantly, look at the way that we catalog entrepreneurs in this county. Site selection has been a monumentally important area for us. When we look at the $100 million deal that we got through Amazon, as far as our strategic business outreach to real estate professionals, it's starting to work and they're starting to see the resources that we're bringing to the table. Whereas before it used to be this secretive group of folks that never engaged government because they were apprehensive to our services, they're coming to us for market research, they're coming to us for site plan assistance, and they're coming to us with deal flows maybe more than the county's ever seen, and I really think it's starting to work. Solid waste plan is always a wild card from the standpoint of, as our friends at the state still continue to debate the Part 115 regulations for solid waste, we are going to get an edict, whether it be from the legislature or the DEQ, that the county's solid waste master plan must be updated in accordance with the materials management plan. CT and education innovation comes from our continued outreach with the local school districts, the ISD, and Macomb Community College. With a new Marshall Plan for talent parameters that are out there, we currently have a grant proposal that's in with the state of Michigan that would get more inventive resources in modernizing the way that we connect classroom to careers. Green Macomb has probably been one of the most successful programs deployed out of our department over the past 5 years. $30,000 will help with some of those advanced administrative support mechanisms that we have there, the Grant Management Division 2, and also providing some more resources to the communities from tree planting to some of the ordinance enhancements.
John, take a breath.
Yeah, I could keep going.
You're doing great. Take a breath.
The downtown, I practiced last night. My wife and kids said I did great. The downtown placemaking and assistance program switches the way that we view the whole notion as downtown and placemaking, as the state has really revamped its redevelopment-ready communities. We look at the successes that Oakland County has had with its Oakland County Main Street program, the successes that they've had in bringing in grants and actually getting support resources from the MEDC MISHDA, and I'll be frank, it's probably one of those areas where we've been deficient. We have traditional downtowns, we have traditional corridors that meet some of the limited criteria for a lot of these support programs, but I stand before here today and say we're the third largest county in the state of Michigan, and we have not received a community development grant under the Michigan Economic Development Corporation. This is something that concerns me as one of the administrators in this area, and I think this is something that we need to take a serious look at and figure out why we're so deficient in that arena. Citizen Planner is more or less, again, a continuation of that scholarship program, where we've now been able to get 36 local administrators through the state Citizen Planner program. The Macomb Business Awards is now the single largest business celebration that we have in the county every single year that recognizes local businesses. And our partners meetings are an extension of the grant dollars that we receive through the CDC to do strategic coordination through our department. And I'm done.
I had some questions. Go back to the last slide.
Yes, sir.
The Macomb Business Awards luncheon, why don't we do that with, how much of that is paid for by sponsors? Why don't we, I thought you guys had sponsors that paid for those.
We do receive a considerable amount of sponsorship for the Macomb Business Awards. The $10,000 placeholder helps us out as we begin to plan at the beginning of the year to make sure that we can get the room reservations. As we have reserves, whether it's through sponsorship dollars that come in, those sponsorship dollars are then to off-put, and whatever savings we have with that rolls back into the general fund.
So have you spent any money at all on those business award programs the last several years?
Yes, we have. I would have to get some particulars with you on that one.
I'd like to see it.
Yes, sir.
Because there's no reason we should be paying any money for that.
Okay.
The Citizen Planner, $10,000, what, I'm familiar with the program. I didn't realize it cost us so much. We pay for these township planners to go to these meetings?
It's a scholarship program we developed with Michigan State University Extension because some of the concerns that we had with regards to the viability of the program here. We offer one scholarship per local community for whether it be an administrator, a local planning commissioner, or elected official to be a part of the program. As a part of this, they've given us a specialized module where our management team gets to go in and work with these people throughout the entire 8-course training. The last module is one where we actually go in and talk about all our county support services and say to cities, villages, and townships, this is the services that we can provide for you, and here's how we want to partner moving forward.
Okay. The solid waste planning, 30,000, that's just really a place, we just hold that in the budget, because you really don't sort of need it unless there's a plan amendment that comes up, right?
If the Part 115 regulations are passed by the legislature, whether it's in lame duck or picked up early next year, we will receive an edict from the DEQ that our plan has to be upgraded with regards to some of the materials management parameters
So we
they're
could,
discussing.
if the board wanted to be thrifty about it, we could just hold that $30,000, and if you need it, you could come back and ask for it.
I could do that, sir, yes.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Gillette.
Thank you, Mr. Tarrant. Thank you, John Paul. Real quick question to Steve before I delve in. Steve, you've been providing these little graphs just about the CPI and our budget costs compared to CPI for all of our budgets. And I can see the vertical lines are identified by year, but what do the horizontal lines represent? Is each line 1% or 0.5% or? say the bottom is identified with the year along that axis, but the other axis
Depends
is
what
not
budget you're looking
identified.
The budget change actual versus change in CPI chart that you're referring to in the upper left-hand corner. 2012 is year zero,
Right.
where those two numbers are always going to be the same, and then they adjust for the change in CPI for each
But
year.
see how there's a bunch of little graph lines below where they are, start at 2012. They don't start at the bottom left corner. They start up. Mm-hmm. What is that? What does each one of those lines mean?
That's the scale. If you look to the right, the budget to actual there, they're the same for both charts.
So-
4 million to 3.5, $500,000 to answer your question, Commissioner.
Oh, it's $500,000.
Yeah.
So it's $1. Each of those lines is a $500,000 line.
You're talking about the thick gray lines?
I'm talking about these vertical lines underneath the red and these horizontal lines. Sorry, horizontal lines. What do each one of these steps mean?
So it's significant.
$500,000. Okay. I think that helps there. So thank you. It just not identified. It just occurred to me. All right. John Paul, a couple quick questions,
Yes,
if I
sir.
may. The downtown placemaking assistance request of $20,000. Excuse me, John Paul, would you put that back up on the screen?
Oh, yeah, sorry about that.
Good.
Yep.
Yeah, you had mentioned that we had not yet really been very aggressive or successful or whatever it might be
Yes,
in
sir.
receiving some money there. So what will we do with this $20,000?
I think the main thing that we would do with regards to the $20,000 is not only establish the parameters for classifying our downtowns to meet the criteria, but also provide the support services to locals to get the certification. So some communities may have to update elements of their master plan. Other communities may have to do some type of charrette or community engagement process. I will be frank, I think we have the staff to do those things, can help offset or share the costs with the locals, whether it is to bring in some type of vendor or some types of certification from the state. It's a more detailed process, whether it's you have to update your zoning ordinance, you have to do strategic community outreach, and as you go through each step along the way, some communities are more modern than others,
Yeah.
so you're slotted in this process.
So our $20,000 that we'd be allocating, we'd be giving to the locals so they can update their master plans?
It could be a match process to do that. It's more or less an exploratory idea that we had from the standpoint of, I think we can kickstart this, and we also have a couple projects that are of interest, one of which is in Sterling Heights, where we're working with the Chaldean American Community Center on a new development over on Van Dyke Avenue, and we've been exploring the whole notion that as they're bringing in private dollars, how we can aid the city of Sterling Heights and their economic development team to get certified.
So they would come to us, the Sterling Heights Chaldean State Chamber, and say, we want to do X, can you give us some money? Okay, and then we would use that $20,000.
That would be one of the ways in which we would do that. The other thing that we've discussed too is looking at the way in which we would certify ourselves with a national Main Street program. The Historic Trust deploys a national program in which gives you the ability to access not only dollars at the federal level, but also would be in line with new
So
dollars.
does it
that are-
cost to join that?
Yes, sir. There are membership costs and other things that are incurred there too.
Okay. Okay, and Steve had mentioned when he came up that, this budget would be going up about 6%, which is about in line with our, the overall budget request for the county, which is about a 6% increase.
Yep.
Which harkens me a little bit back to the previous discussion. We keep investing in all these efficiencies, but we never seem to reduce the number of people or money, despite all these investments. And this is not you.
Okay.
So I'm going on, I'm launching a tirade here.
I appreciate the
There's nothing to be-
criticism, and I would be more than happy to respond to that criticism.
Sure, I mean, but everything, so many of our expenditures are characterized as, this is gonna increase our efficiency. And in the private sector, real world, we see efficiency increases resulting in more being done with less. So for example, we used to have 90% of our population farming 100 years ago, now we've got 3%, but we're producing more food. Same with manufacturing. We have fewer manufacturing jobs, but actually more manufacturing as a country. Not
As a country, yeah.
but
Okay.
so we're manufacturing more stuff with less because there's robots, there's these efficiencies and so forth. Somehow, we never end up doing having. We're adding staff. Modernizing staff.
I like that term better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're always modernizing staff, which modernizing always seems to cost money. It never seems to result in we're doing more with less. So this is not specific to you. I know I'm sure when you look and say, all right, we need to increase our travel budget 23%. We need to increase our budget for meetings 90%. We need to increase our cell phone budget 10%. It's
Yeah.
because there's more staff. You're going to be doing,
I would say there's more work being done too, if I could characterize it that way.
okay, sure. So there's more work. And again, this is not with your department, John Paul. It's just that a budget that spends 6% more overall, yours and others,
Yes.
isn't seeming to result in us doing more with less. We're spending more. We're spending more than the rate of inflation. We're spending more than we're taking in revenues. We are taking it, we are going into the our reserve fund, and we keep saying it's more efficient. We keep doing efficiencies, but we never see less people. Everybody's efficiency takes more people, costs more money. Maybe we need to become less efficient so we can save money and save time, because the efficiency part doesn't seem to be producing value.
So Commissioner Drollet. and
Okay, I'm
through the
done. Go
chair,
ahead. Well,
I don't know.
I'm done, so you can respond.
Yeah, I don't know if there was a question there, but Mr. Chair, if I may.
It's a rant, but you're welcome to respond.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
just don't start any more rants. So
No,
choose
I
your
just
words
had one.
carefully.
I still have the floor because I might re-rant.
I appreciate that.
But, okay.
So, yes, we're asking for a 6% increase in our budget. That's in the figures, and I won't deny that. However, what I would like to say with regards to the efficiencies or perceived efficiencies in our department, we are still below historic staffing highs. At one point in time, we had 31 individuals that didn't include temporary help and interns within our department. We are now only at 26, so we are doing more with less. This past year alone, we had the most economic investment that our department has ever facilitated in the county's history, just shy of $500 million. That led to nearly 6,000 jobs created or retained. So there's direct economic transformation and dollar-for-dollar return on investment coming from the work that's being facilitated at our team.
Could you give me that figure again of what we've
$414 million of economic investment was touched directly by the team in our department. That was direct dollars that came here to this county. That added 6,000 jobs that were created or retained through those services and direct investment through the county. And I'd be more than happy to give you the spreadsheet, which itemizes every single one of those investments.
I believe that. I just wonder that if we all disappeared for a year,
Yeah.
all of us,
Yeah.
I wonder what percent of that would have happened anyway, because the economy is expanding, growing, and not all of it, I'm sure, but I mean, we can't take credit as a county that, if it wasn't for us, none of that would have happened.
I will stand here and take credit for every single penny of that $414 million.
Wow, all right.
Yep. Certified.
I'll take credit for it too.
Certified by the 26 incredible professionals that are working down on the 7th floor right now.
I don't think you're not doing a good job, or that your department is not doing a good job.
I appreciate that.
I'm just worried that we can't afford all the good jobs we're doing in this county. Not just your department, that we can't afford to increase spending 6% while our revenues are only increasing 3%.
And Commissioner Drollet, as I've stood up here year over year, I understand the difficult decisions that this board has to make, whether you want to pay someone to give a kid a flu shot or pay someone to help a business out. That's a decision you all have to make, but as an advocate for our department, as the great services that we're doing, I think I'd be doing a disservice to you, to all, unless I discussed the way I wanted to modernize this department.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
JP, do you really need that other employee? I mean,
Yeah.
you had a record year this year with what you have now. So
yeah.
I could say, well, you don't need the other employee, you're doing great now.
Yeah, we're doing great. I'd like to do better. I think with
gotcha.
that,
I appreciate that. Commissioner Carabelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One thing you may not be aware of, but you helped save $230,000 here at the county.
Thank you.
And by that, it was the clerk's department that wanted to sign a contract for, what's the name of the program?
GIS?
Well, they're using your GIS to help implement their plat or whatever that thing's called.
He's padding the budget.
So in turn, we didn't have to sign a contract for that.
make us feel
So
good.
with
We
working
cut
with
those
your
employees.
employees and with the current register of deeds, that's a $230,000 savings.
The credit for that more or less goes to information technologies and their ability to help us with the system.
So that's a good thing. On that note, JP, I have an intimate knowledge of grants that you guys write and apply for and you receive.
Yes, sir.
You have dedicated staff in each one of the different departments. So if I went ahead and said to the water initiative, what's that called?
Land and Water Resources.
Resources. And I won't hold you to these numbers, and you're not going to be, re-recorded and say you were off. What do you think you received in grants for water this year?
I believe all totaled for land and water resources under Green Macomb exclusively, it'd be $750,000 with an additional $500,000 that's coming in for the DEQ for some beast restoration efforts.
Okay. With that said, there's other grants that you have applied for. I know personally for some trail stuff.
Yes, sir.
Roughly, just rough figures.
I'd put it just south of $100,000 just back of the napkin off the top of my head.
So we talked about trails, we talked about water and land. What other kind of grants does your department write for?
So obviously with each one of the 4 specific work groups that we have there, a majority of our grants are focused on areas, whether it be joint community planning dollars, which covers our planning, mapping services, and land and water resources. And then on the economic development side, we also facilitate, and Vicki has some more information on this, a lot of industry sector grants, whether we're getting $125,000 to $135,000 from the Michigan Defense Center to deploy our Protect and Grow initiative that helps match dollar for dollar the $100,000 that we're asking for. So I would say on any given year, I would say a good average year maybe would put us at about 3 and change on total for grants that might be coming in, but that doesn't account for a full catalog of everything else the department does.
Okay. And again, I'm not holding you to any of these figures. Out of the time of your employees that you have allocated to this, is this almost like somebody's dedicated of writing grants and that's 75 to 100% of what they do, or is it 50% of their time? Just roughly.
Commissioner, what I would say is that with each one of the work groups, I would probably put a good conservative estimate anywhere between 10 to 15% of time spent on grant coordination efforts.
Okay. And the reason why I mentioned that is we had mentioned to the executive office and to Steve that, we may want to have a grant writing department to help some of these other departments that don't have the personnel to write these grants. Now, I can't say I want you to take away from what you're doing and writing your grants and implementing what you got going on, but this just shows you the big dollars that come in when you have the time to prepare for grants and bring them here to our county. And I think that this county really needs to take a strong look. I think that it'll not only pay for itself, but bring so much money into this county. That was one of the points I wanted to bring up with you. The other point is that I know the economy was great this past year. I know that you personally touched, I don't want to say it that way. I don't want to get you in trouble.
I don't do much. It's the team, really. So
your team has intimately involved in these dollars that came in here. And I know because the economy is so great that they're able to do this and attract more dollars than just not having the people bringing anything in. And would some come still? Sure, some would come. But with that said, besides what Steve had said, the 6% increase was mostly based on the one employee that was hired in the summer that now is seeing the full impact on the following budget. What percentage would that one employee that was already approved by the board? So there's apples and oranges. I just want to make sure I'm understanding what he had said.
Not knowing,
Because you had said that the majority was the
Yeah, the-
wages of the additional employee.
I guess I'd have to do some quick math. You also have the additional 40,000 in contract services.
Which I
Which is
think
adding-
I think we just saved $30,000 and we'll put it back on. They'll have to come for a
Right,
budget
so there's,
adjustment for
you know-
that. When the time comes, I don't think that's a problem. So it's really only 10.
Thank
Which
you.
would be, thank you, Commissioner Brown.
You're welcome. Commissioner Kraft?
What, no, I'm waiting for him to give me the
So,
number.
it's probably added, so associate planner makes
Oh, I'm gonna
just
hear you.
south of 60,000. Add some benefits on it, it's probably closer to 80 or 85 with healthcare and everything else. So talk 40 probably there, and another 40 in contract services is 80,000, so 3% or so, 3 or 4, 80 over.
So is it fair,
3.4.
and I'm asking because I want to really know, I don't want to guess on this. So if you took that out, which was approved by the board, and the 30,000 out there, so department overall would just be going up 3%. If you took all that out, the 30,000 that we had talked about, and then that position, because it was already approved, and it would reflect really from your 18, because it wouldn't be going up because we approved it. No, I'm just asking. Well, we'll put it at 3%. So, all right,
My
thank
quick
you.
math,
Thank you, Mr.
my
Chairman.
quick math is about 2.5%. If you took out the 40 grand for the additional half a year, and you took out the 40 grand for
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Kraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. JP, I'm looking at the list of conferences and training.
Yes, sir.
It says planned, but in the list it says it totals out to be $66,500, and in the budget we have $25,000. So are you sticking to the 25,000 mark and you're just going to cut back on the 66 and a half from there, or are you taking a trip to Paris? Because that's another question I have too.
Thank you for bringing that up. So the good thing is because we brought in other grants as far as our out-of-state travel. I'll go back to that one real quick.
Put it back in the board. Yeah, put it back in the board.
Yeah.
There you go. Leave it alone now.
Hold on, I want to go back to this one, the out-of-state travel one, as far as the increase
Thank
there
you.
with 25,000. So as you'll see in the direct line items that are in our budgets too, we have out-of-state travel, we have conferences and seminars, and then we have travel expenditures. So if we go to the Mackinac Policy Conference, that comes exclusively out of conference and seminars. If we go to Paris, that comes out of out-of-state travel. So depending on the trade show, depending on the parameters set forth in the budget, that's how we cover it. The other thing that we've been able to do too is by bringing in some of those grant dollars, such as the defense grant, we've been able to offset travel costs. For example, we're leading the state delegation of the AUSA Army Trade Show starting this Sunday. So those grant dollars actually offset those costs, and that's a rolling grant process. So I think as we've gone through this process with Steve and really itemized it all, I think all the cost centers will be able to adequately cover this. The one thing that I will highlight that is a wild card in this budget, as you'll see in the conferences, seminars, and training, is the $10,000 that varies for the MEDC, DRC, and Automation Alley trade missions. Those universally have been contingent on the governor's trade schedule. So as we've established a good working rapport with the Schneider administration, we've been invited to the Paris Air Show to be a part of the aerospace delegation. Not knowing ultimately what's going to happen with the outcomes of the election with the governor's office and how those priorities will look, there may be savings incurred there too, but this is historically how some of those cost centers have charted out over the past 3 years.
Gotcha. Okay. That math wasn't adding up for me. That makes a lot more sense. And I also just want to say that I'm happy to see John and Brent on the list being upgraded. Well, upgraded, reclassified, I guess.
Better word.
I've worked with them for a very long time. It's good to see them moving up a little bit. So
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, JP.
Appreciate
Thank
that.
you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Chairman Smith.
Thank you. Good afternoon, JP.
Commissioner.
Thank you for being here. I have a couple questions, and you may have mentioned it when you were speaking, but it might have
I'm sorry.
gone past
Micro
me.
machines.
So, and some of this has already happened, but contract services from 17 to 18 went up 100,000, and then this year they're going up 40. Can you, if you've already said it, I apologize. but I missed it.
100,000 was protect and grow. When the state set that benchmark, we wanted to make it a priority for our county. So when we came year before last and asked for that $100,000 cost center, it not only was to make us a lead in that arena, but the dollars that are coming in, not only from the defense contractors, the work that we're doing from the installations, whether it's the F-35 initiative at Selfrid, whether it's the force modernization commands coming out of TACOM, whether it's the utility enhancements that we're looking down at TARDEC. These are all things that money not only has been able to put into the kitty, but has been able to do things that is getting us things like the Eisenhower Center that's coming to Selfridge.
It's good to hear the result of it, but when you say $100,000 in the kitty, it's for contract services. Have we been hiring people and companies to secure these type of things?
So it's been a multitude of efforts underneath that. So whether it's bringing in the Matrix Group, which is one of the lead consultants on DoD community public-private partnership agreements, we've put together strategies and been able to get the Eisenhower Center. The F-35 strategic economic analysis that we did that got us on the short list for basing, which we still believe that we are within a 3-year time frame to actually get confirmation on the whole notion as far as what that fighter wing looks like and when it'll be coming to Macomb County. The other thing that we've been doing too with that is expanding the strategic support that we're doing with the Michigan Defense Center on the advocacy side at the federal level. So right now with the new DoD authorization, we've been able to use contract support through the Roosevelt Group and the MEDC to understand what it looks like for us to put together a innovation center down at TACOM that will get more business to DoD coordination there. So whether it's through contractual services, whether it's through us bringing in consultants, whether it's through us being at the AUSA, all those things come in under Protect and Grow.
All right, great. So moving on, you mentioned something about asking for a new position, but budgetarily, there's not a new position requested in this from the executive's office. So I just want, there's a lot of I was confused for a second. I thought I was missing something.
I just
So
wanted to
you're
provide you with an overview of everything
of
that
what
was
you had
submitted in the
asked for.
supplemental
Got it.
information.
Okay, that's great. I don't know, Steve, or if you can mention, but under managers and supervisors, it has you listed as Deputy County Executive / Director of Planning. Did I miss something here? I mean, has that been your title since the beginning? I didn't know that you were still listed as Deputy County Executive. So
if I'm not mistaken, my title as is under Human Resources is Director of Planning and Economic Development / Deputy County Executive.
All right, I wasn't familiar with that. Well, congratulations
Thank
again.
you, appreciate it. There is no monetary bump
So-
associated with that.
All right, so it's not in the 18 budget, though. I mean, it's not listed like that in 18. Steve, do you know why, or, I mean, is that something new, or did we just not do it last year, or how's that? What are we doing here?
In terms of the 18 amended, you're in the back. You're
As
back
far
in
as
the
our
position
budget
schedule, I
person
assume,
tells me
right?
that it wasn't in the 18
Yeah.
that we adopted. It wasn't listed as that.
Correct, because that title change was made sometime during the course of this particular year, no change in salary pay grade.
Yet.
Not to my knowledge, nothing built in for 19. Nothing built in for 19. You'll see it on page 8 of the addendum where we've added one deputy county executive and reduced the executive director by one.
Okay.
Again, same pay grade.
All
No
right.
plans that I'm aware of to change the pay grade.
I just, okay, that just didn't make sense to me. It makes sense, but it didn't make sense that we don't know anything about it, and you're back to being a deputy county executive, which I love. But
Still Director of Planning
I
and
know.
Economic Development, sir.
I see it. So here's another question on the positions. We're moving 2 associate planners to senior planners, right?
Yes,
If
sir.
I'm reading this right. Which I'm sure that there's, a good reason behind that, but my concern is always that then we have 2 senior planners, and in a couple years, we need some more associate planners to give the senior planners, I don't know how it works, right? I don't know if they feed them work or whatever, but my concern is that we're bumping 2 of them up, and then within a very short time, we're gonna be needing 2 more associate planners. What do you see in your future for that, and can you tell me why that's not gonna happen? Or
Yeah,
that
so
it's-
the first thing that I would say with regards to the reclassifications is that it is merit-based. These individuals went out this year and got certification through the American Institute of Certified Planners. Also, their years of service and advanced degrees, I think, not only make them prime candidates for a justifiable reclassification. While I stand here before you today, I think it is more of a necessity to give these individuals this merit-based classification. I can't stand here and promise you I won't ask for more people moving forward, but I think it better suits the department to reclassify these individuals at a senior level, which is more indicative of the type of work that they're doing for this county at this time.
But we're not gonna be leaving behind any associate planner work that these new senior planners are out of classification to do, right?
We
As
never
far-
leave behind work, sir.
Okay, great. And I know I have one more question for you, but I'll have to remember it later. Thanks.
Appreciate it.
The contractual services, when you guys did a video of Mound Road to use to lobby our federal legislators about Mound Road, that was paid for out of contractual services, wasn't it? Because Macomb County did they showed a video of Mound Road, driving down Mound Road. Did it come out of our budget, or come out of a Warren or
I
Sterling Heights
believe
maybe?
that was the partnership under Innovate Mound, which came out of those contractual services that came through roads, if I'm not mistaken.
That was money well spent. We got $90 million.
That's a good return on investment.
Yeah, no doubt. All right. Thank you, Commissioner Toko.
Thank you. JP, on your slide, the one that shows contractual services, up in the corner, it said 330,000. And on our budget sheet, it shows 380,000 under that line.
What form are you speaking to?
On our budget sheet. Well, I need Biford. C50.
Oh. Yes, so there are two contractual services line items in our budget. There is the CS Professional, which is at $50,000, and there's the CS Other. This is an itemization of the contractual services other line item, which has been in front of you. There are no changes to the CS Professional line item that is on there.
What?
We don't see that breakdown in our budget that's given to us. We don't have, so a lot of the things that you were even talking to Commissioner Kraft about aren't in our budget. You know them off the top of your head, but they're not shown in our.
The one that's on the website?
Yeah, we don't have, well, I mean, we could get them, but that's not what's on our budget packet from finance. It doesn't break down into the minute details of each heading.
He's talking about JP is, it just shows the 380.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. Thanks, Steve. It's easier to show you than to tell you.
So where's the other line item for that?
The CS Professional is at $50,000, and it stayed $50,000 for the past 5 years.
Okay, so what you showed us wasn't everything then? Is the list for the 330?
This is everything that's in contractual services other that we're requesting for this year.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I see no other speakers. Do we have a motion to forward this to finance? Well, without the, we'll make.
We're not making any decisions on anything, but is this something that Steve's gonna go back and we'll talk about if he needs that 30,000, they'll come back? Who's gonna make this?
Well, we do make it I'll make it at finance when the. Yeah, that's right. Well, that's right. We just send it to finance and we get there, we'll remember these conversations. All right.
Crystal will.
Well, that's what she's here for. All right, need a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Romano, supported by Commissioner, very good. Everyone, please vote. What's that? I know what her name is. Elizabeth. I didn't want to call her Elizabeth. I had to check myself. I didn't want to be too informal. Don't get in trouble. You know, my mouth sometimes gets me in trouble sometimes. All right, okay. Next, the budget review. All done, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners.
We're on the parks at this point, I
6B.
believe. The park budget is on page E4 of the budget. So, again, a little over a $500,000 operation here. I guess the biggest change in the park from 18 to 19 is, as you recall, we requested the addition of one maintenance supervisor in the summer. So you'll see that flowing through all the wage items again. We also reduced supplies and services, basically ground scare, as a result of that. So we're not paying folks to go out and mow the lawn and plow the driveways and all that sort of thing. It's all gonna be done by this maintenance supervisor. So you'll see that particular line, supplies and services is going down a little over $107,000, and budgetarily from 18 to 19, you'll see wages increasing. There's a $50,000 line item in here for capital outlay for, unanticipated expenses of some kind, if we need a repair of some sort out there. What you'll also see in the
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Just, would you do that one more time, capital outlay, the 50,000?
50,000 in case we need to buy
Case?
in case. I mean, sometimes we buy new equipment, we need an air handler, might need a vehicle of some kind out there. We do this in other places as well. I mean, we talked about that last week a little bit in the general fund. It could be not necessarily a vehicle of some kind, it could be some kind of heating and cooling unit.
So why wouldn't you come back on an as-needed basis instead of just?
I guess we view the budget as a planning document. So, I mean, I guess we could zero out the entire budget and just come back every month when we spend money, I guess. I'm not trying to be, pardon?
Nothing, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not trying to be argumentative, but it's a planning document, so we put money in as placeholders because we don't necessarily know exact amounts in what we're gonna spend. We have a contingency in this particular fund for equipment, is what that is. We've had fewer festivals out there the last couple of years, so you'll see a reduction in revenues as well. So we've also decreased our security costs. That security costs are in the supplies and services as well. So the general fund contribution is remaining the same. Drawing down in fund balances. At the end of 2017, there was about a $500,000 unreserved fund balance out there.
Okay, thank you.
So,
You done, Commissioner Romano? Commissioner Romano, Commissioner Carabelli?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Question for you, and I understand being proactive, you want to put money aside in case something breaks out there. But is that now what Lynn does in the capital thing where she anticipates out? I mean, sat down with you, went through a whole list of different air handlers from the courts to different things where she's planning out when she's going to replace these. Would that not fall under her department?
to some degree it would. This could be other things that just aren't on the list, that aren't anticipated.
Okay. Did you spend the $50,000 that we budgeted this year?
For 18, not to my knowledge at this point. We may have spent part of it, but I don't know.
Okay. That's all I have right now. Thank you.
Chairman Smith?
Thank you. Hi, Steve. The fund balance obviously is, shown to be dropping, and, I mean, at some point, I mean, on the fund balance for this Parks and Rec Department, what used to put money into that Parks fund balance? Was that just a general fund? Did we just fund a Parks balance at some point?
Most of that fund balance is reverting back to our settlement with Hillside.
Oh, okay.
A number of years back, we had a $500,000 settlement.
Got it.
So the general fund always kind of put enough in for it to break even. And then the last few years, we had a large reduction in the contribution. It used to be over $100,000, more than $140,000, $150,000 range. We were fortunate enough to have a number of events out there that were supplying enough revenue to, reduce that contribution. But essentially, the fund balance is because of the Hillside settlement a few years ago.
Okay.
A number of years ago now. I can't remember the exact year.
So, at the end of the day, total expenditures for that park is $516,000. I mean, in not too distant future, I mean, we're gonna be, the way we're dropping, we're gonna be on the line for a $516,000 total at some point. Once that fund balance, let's say general fund transfers in, we have $86,000 right now. That's what it looks like, correct?
Correct.
That's what we're anticipating for the next bunch of years.
Mm-hmm.
But expenses, I mean, it's
Now
not.
remember-
I'm not sure when you see that hitting us, right? Because at some point, I mean, we're going to be on the line for the total amount of that expenditure, right? And once the fund balance is gone.
Well, again, the fund balance is made up of two components. So you have the net book value of the assets and you have an unrestricted. So I concentrate on the unrestricted amount. So every year in the supplies and services line, there's a $120,000 expense in there for depreciation, which is a non-cash expense. So you'll see that the two components of fund balance, the net investment in capital assets on page E5 is going down $120,000 a year. That's non-cash. The unrestricted should be going down somewhere around $50,000 to $60,000 a year because of the capital outlay, generally speaking.
Okay, well, so I'm just looking at the fund balance at the end of the year down here. Once that's out, we're gonna obviously be on the hook for more, and the way it's going down about 200,000, yeah, it's 7 to 8 years.
7 or 8 years.
That fund balance
If we
is gonna
spend
be.
the 50,000 every year, you're correct.
Right, so at this point in 8 years, we're gonna be on the hook for a lot more for this park. That's my first point, and it was a question, I guess, too, to make sure that I was seeing that right. That being said, are there, we've been talking about grants and grant departments and things like that. Is this something that planning looks at or anybody looks at for grants, possible funding for this? Is it looks at, do we look at trying to increase the usage of that park at any point? Because, 8 years seems like a long time, but, it was 8 years ago when I got on. It doesn't seem like that long ago. And all of a sudden, we'll be in a position where, everything that's going like this, and we anticipate it's going like this, well, this is something on there that, I mean, I don't know if you have it anticipated in, in the future down in 2025 or whatever that might be. So, do we get any grants for anything like at the park?
I don't know,
Is
we
there-
don't get any grants today. Now, whether that's gonna be part of the Parks Master Plan or
Right.
whatever planning is working on at this point, I don't know. We'll have to see what that plan looks like.
Okay. It's just something that we have to keep on our radar, that this is gonna be an added expense.
Yeah, it's on
general
our
fund
radar
coming.
as well in terms of what's going on with the fund balance in here, what's
One-time,
going on
right.
with the number of events and, what we charge for events, that whole gamut of,
Okay.
Back in the day, it was about $1.5 million a year out of our general fund we paid to maintain that park with staff and everything else. It's still,
I understand that we used to do things different, but I just see a bump to our budget, or, coming in the future.
I got you. I'm all with you there. Commissioner Romano.
Thank you, Chair. In fact, first of all, I want you to know that I'm in favor of this guy, whoever they want to call him, supervisor, maintenance man. I think it's a great idea. My question is, in the summertime, I can understand where we'd be utilizing this guy. What are we going to do with him in the wintertime? Why could this not be a part-time position to open and closing the Johns and general cleanup? I don't, maybe you can help me out here. Or should I be talking to Mr. Viviano? I don't know if I should go to you, Steve, or do I talk to him?
I think probably Mr. Delder and Mr. Viviano would have a better answer for you. I know he'd be out there making sure that everything, all the driveways are clear and everything else, but I understand where you're going with that. Summertime's a different story.
Absolutely, and I just,
But that person could also be utilized somewhere else in the county during the winter months, doing other activities. I'm not
okay.
exactly sure what all those activities could possibly be, but.
Thank you. If this moves forward to finance, I'd like another notation about the $50,000, if I may, Crystal. That's it. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Gillette.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick question on the fund balance. Is this a segregated fund that we keep within our main fund balance but sort of set aside, or is it, how is it structured? Is it a completely separate fund in a completely separate account?
Totally separate fund, yep.
Okay.
The cash is commingled with the rest of the cash in the county, but it's accounted for in its own fund. It has been forever. I always say forever, but for decades.
Right. And it's invested in the same way our other cash
It's
fund.
commingled with all the other cash. in
With
the
all the
county.
other investments. Okay, that's what I wanted to know. And then just a quick note, I mean, is the $50,000 request based on similar expenses we've had in past years? I mean, could it be 25,000? What have we experienced generally? Do you have any idea off the top of your head?
Not off the top of my head. We've, 2-3 years ago, I think we added some lighting or something out there that was over 50.
LED lighting.
Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head, year by year by year.
I understand. I mean, just curious where, the 50 grand seems to be popping up in a bunch of budgets, and it just seems odd that every department needs right about 50 grand. I mean, but there's not based on only, here's how much we spent the last 5 years in capital outlay on this, on this particular department, and it averages 50 grand or something like that. But thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. I've seen other speakers. Commissioner Carabelli.
Hey, real quick, Steve, the lawsuit funds that were received can only probably be spent over at Freedom Hill?
Not that I'm aware
They're
of.
not restricted by any
unrestricted.
stretch?
Yeah, I don't know if they're restricted or not.
Okay, thank you.
I can follow up, but I don't believe they
Well,
are.
I'm just saying, if they are restricted, I would spend that down on your $500,000 a year of operations, take your income from the thing and put that in a different pot so that you can use that if you ever did for something else, and spend that money all the way down if it was restricted.
Yeah, I'm not sure
right
it's
to the general
restricted,
fund.
but
Where all dollars go. No other speakers. I need a motion to forward this on to finance. Moved by Commissioner Romano, supported by Commissioner Lucido. Thank you. And the last one is Michigan Works.
you're still here?
Are you still sure the guy over here?
Michigan Works budget is on D10, $4.5 million program, actually a reduction of 2 FTEs this year. Program is entirely federally funded.
I like
I have very short comments about this every year, so Mr. Riley is the expert.
Perfect. Thank you. I don't know if I need that kind of a build-up, but I'll take it. Good afternoon, Commissioners. It's always a pleasure to be in front of you and give you any updates and answer any questions you may have. As Steve mentioned, my entire budget is federally funded through a source of workforce development grants. But I did want to take some time and, of course, answer any questions. Am I hitting the microphone?
That's fine.
Well
You're
enough?
good.
Okay. I want to take some time to give you some updates over the past year, give you some heads up on some things we're looking at, and of course, I am pleased to answer any questions you might have.
Focus primarily on your budget.
I'm sorry?
Focus primarily on your budget.
Okay.
Please.
Sure thing.
Thank you.
As Steve mentioned, I did reduce by two full-time.
We'll bring you back separately for a more comprehensive update, okay?
Oh, wonderful.
All right, I will do that.
I'm happy to do
mentioned
that.
what you're doing over there.
Okay, I'm very happy to come back and share that. So the budget this year, you will notate I did put an increase in the training budget, the staff training budget. One thing which I did not put on the supplement form, and I apologize, is I am going through the Leadership Macomb process. I did start that last month. That was something in conversation that felt it was a good development piece, a good networking piece around the county to assist with our workforce development needs. So you'll see that in the training budget. I also did increase the training budget that I will be going out and looking for bids, comparisons to provide training to my staff so they are better versed on Microsoft Office. A lot of the activities that we do in our centers, especially with where the unemployment rate is now, the detail to which we will be assisting our customers, I want to be sure that my staff can speak very well and be able to act on programs such as Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, and Outlook. Primarily Word, though, because that is our primary tool in order to help an individual, a job seeker, create their resume and to make it stand out from the rest of the group. So that's why you will see some increase in the training budget there. You're probably also going to notice I do have 4 vacancies at this moment. 2 of them have been for a number of months. Working with the administrative staff of the Workforce Development Board, we're just keeping an eye on where federal budgets are to see, do we need to fill those positions, and when do we have funds to comfortably fill those positions. It's for a variety of reasons, retirements, and folks moving on to other opportunities. In fact, the Workforce Board hired one of my staff, and another individual went on to private employment, and the most recent vacancy was an unexpected passing of one of my staff. Thank you. I appreciate that. She was Miranda Davis. She was a wonderful, wonderful employee. She was very customer focused, customer first before anything else, and she is dearly missed by the staff that worked with her at Clinton Township. Let me stop there. Any questions any of the commissioners may have?
Yeah, thanks for coming here today. Just curious why you have a request for 2 less case managers. What's the reason for that?
Reason for that was if we go back to about 2005, maybe 6, this department was approximately 37 individuals. Over the recessionary decade, we went into a program you might be familiar with, No Worker Left Behind, and our staff increased up to a point of about 62. I don't believe we tipped higher than 62. And so that was just part of, as again, folks have retired or moved on in other means. We're just addressing the department and figuring at that point we didn't need the 62 staff that we did under that decade. We are coming down to norms that we had back in 05, 06, with the only difference being we have 1 additional career center than we did prior to No Worker Left Behind. We opened up our Warren Center, and that is still in full operation. But just with the state of the economy, the strength of the workforce, we felt it was not needed to have those 2 positions.
Okay. And I'm just curious, I know this is a budget meeting, but I do have to ask this question. what are the challenges for job seekers?
Well,
And-
Commissioner Majak, we're gonna
Yeah.
hold that, I'm gonna bring him back, we're gonna have a discussion
Okay.
on that subject at a future meeting.
Okay, so
Before
I'll
the end
just,
of the year.
I'll just say this, I'd like to know what's going on with from the employer standpoint and the employees, the job seekers. And we have labor shortages, I'd like to know about that. I'd like to know about, wage growth, job pay, if that's a factor, things like that we can go into at a future meeting. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
That's all good questions, Commissioner, that's why I wanna make sure we give it the time it deserves. Thank you.
I'd be happy to address those at a future date, of course.
Commissioner Carabelli.
Thank you. Real quick, you're located on Van Dyke, correct?
Yes, we're Van Dyke, 11 and a half, right across from MTech.
Right next to Michigan.
MDHHS?
Yes.
Yes.
And they're leaving.
Yes, they are leaving.
And what are your plans?
At the moment, we are in the middle of a 5-year lease. We don't have intentions that I'm aware of moving out of that building.
Your lease is with the county.
The Workforce Development Board leases that out themselves. It's leased through John Beer Bussey's staff.
To the county. You're renting our space, correct?
No, that's a space rented through a company called Howard Realty.
Okay. Steve, the reason I ask is the state's leaving that building that we own, correct? Why would we not have him rent from us or get rid of that building? 62 employees, there's a lot more there than, can you please check into that and see if we can save the county some money? And raises rent?
I see what- okay.
No, I'm just kidding, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
But seriously,
All right.
I'd like for you to take a look at that, please. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman Smith.
Thanks. Steve, I'm just looking at this. We don't put any general fund money towards, okay. End of my questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Romano.
I guess the same question. This is all federally funded through grants.
That's correct.
I love grants. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Roulette.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What if you encountered an circumstance where you needed to have $50,000 extra dollars, just in case? Would that be federally funded, or where would you go to get that?
I would come here and ask for $51,000 just to have some comfort.
Thank you.
I like his response.
Please don't put that on the record. I'm
respect that
totally
guy.
joking for.
You know what? We're going to put you on earlier than I thought. Okay. Moved by Commissioner Romano to receive and file, supported by Commissioner Majak. Please vote.
Thank you.
for coming, Chris. Chris will contact you, and we'll schedule a meeting that's mutually convenient for both of us, all right?
I'd be very happy to.
Very good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move that. And who supports that? Commissioner Gillette supports it. Please vote. All right, new business. Any new business come before the board? Chairman Smith?
Thanks, Chairman Brown. The capital funds and JACO was going to be coming in. Steve, I'm glad you're still here. How are we doing this with JACO? I know we had talked about a bunch of different ways to make sure that he didn't have to come to every department's capital, or budget review. We're looking at having a special meeting or two. As far as I left this, and I was talking with Crystal about it, to have all the departments or a good handful of them and JACO show up just at that meeting.
The original idea was for Lynn
And Lynn, I'm sorry, yep.
Yeah, so, yeah, the original idea was for Lynn to come today, as a matter of fact, to talk about her infrastructure needs for facilities, and then for Jaco to come back in 2 weeks on the 16th with the various departments that are requesting IT projects to talk about not only his projects, but the departments here to speak on behalf of their own projects.
Right.
So,
I think what we're looking at doing is maybe holding one more meeting that just has IT and all of those departments in, so he doesn't have to come in like that. So we'll keep working on it. With Crystal. Do you have something set with her or no?
No.
No, I spoke with her before the meeting. She was then looking at having maybe an infrastructure meeting next week or on the 22nd.
We'll get back with you.
Yeah.
22nd.
So we
Yeah,
will
the
look
sooner-
at the,
I'd
we'll look
only
at the
ask the sooner the
22nd.
better, so
Yeah.
we can coordinate with the department
figure it
heads to
out
make
tomorrow,
sure we
but-
can be here.
Yeah.
We'll
So
get you
I-
an answer tomorrow, probably.
My-
Okay, perfect.
And my point to all this is that we are going to probably have at least one more meeting added on to it for infrastructure, for
Capital plan.
capital plan that relate to IT projects. So
We're
that-
looking at 10/22 possibly.
That's the possible date on it, yeah.
If anyone's got any,
Right. Okay,
And
thank you.
I don't know about the department heads. I did send a text message to Jaco to see if he was available. He's available on the 22nd.
Just in case,
You
okay.
know,
Well,
that's
he-
3
yeah.
weeks, so I'll follow up with Lynn tomorrow too, if that's the direction we're headed. I don't,
That's
unless
the
you just want me to
direction-
wait for Crystal.
just wait.
Okay.
Right. And
Sooner
the-
the better, though.
And this
I'll
is
update you tomorrow.
this is gonna be a big, I mean, it's gonna be a lot,
gonna- it's gonna
it's
be a lot of
potential to be a
stuff.
really long meeting. That's why we talked about having it on its own. So we'll talk about that and
figure
get
it out.
back with you. But I just
Perfect.
want to clue everybody into the fact that we might have an additional meeting on your calendar.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other new business? Seeing no new business. Oh, sorry, didn't see you, Commissioner.
I just had a real quick question, not sure to who, but how many more budget reviews do we have left to go through? Does anybody know? Maybe Steve's probably the most up to
Yeah, I was going to
that.
say.
According to my calendar, we have the treasurer's office on Wednesday. 2, so 1, 2, 3. You're talking about number of departments or meetings?
Departments, please.
Okay, so we got treasurer on Wednesday, veterans in Martha T-Berry the following Wednesday, emergency management and prosecutor the following Thursday on the 11th, board office on the 15th, roads public works on the 16th, HR on the 17th, and that's it.
Okay. 7. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Steve.
Okay. All right. Any other new business? Public participation, anyone from the public wish to be heard? Anyone from the public? Anyone from the public? Seeing no public participation, need a motion to adjourn. Motion by Douget, supported by Drollet. Oh, it's, please vote.
Peace. See you in church. See you Wednesday. Maybe.